We got some spicy new cards for all across the spectrum for Vanguard, but sadly all these cards have two specific things in common, which are the two letters P and R, which we all know don't like. Let's talk about it. Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we've got some very exciting new cards, but sadly, as I already told you in the intro, these are new promo cards, which means they do have a kind of sour taste after we see these spicy new skills. And for anybody that's been familiar with this channel, you guys know my opinion about promos, and that hasn't changed whatsoever. But even though that might be the case, these skills and these cards are pretty exciting, and they fix some of the issues of certain decks, or they improve just very good decks in general. And let's just hope we're gonna get these cards to the English format, and let's just hope they're not that hard to get, so they aren't going to be that pricey. So without any further ado, let's see what these new promos have in store for us and what they can mean for specific decks. So first up, let's tackle two V premium promos and then go over the standard ones, as those are a bit more in quantity. So first off, we got a brand new Royal Paladin Grade 1 promo in the likes of Replenish Mage. And this is a very interesting support card for the Blaster engine, or just the entire Blaster archetype, or maybe even Royal Paladin in general, as we have Auto and Rigor Circle. Once a turn, when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard attacks, cost, Counterblast 1, choose a grade 2 or greater Blaster from your soul, call to the open Vanguard circle. So this essentially gives the entire Blaster engine, or even Royal Paladin in general, an extra multi-attack option, as now they can just multi-attack with a Blaster from Soul for the cost of a Counterblast and a pseudo Soul cost, essentially. And that's great to just achieve more multi-attacks. The condition that you need to have an open Rigor Circle might be a bit annoying for some decks, because that either means you need to sacrifice the circle in the first place to even get the multi-attack, so maybe you're not actually gaining more attacks, but at the very least you don't have to sacrifice that many cards from hand to achieve this. And interesting enough, this considers with a lot of engines, because we have Gancelot, for example, that can benefit from this, as they are playing Blaster Blades. This can also work with Mastery Lord Blaster, maybe even Messianic Lord Blaster, because Messianic has all type of Blaster cards, so this can work with any of those grade 2 Blaster units, and even grade 3s. Keep in mind, if you rewrite your grade 3 Blaster unit, you can call it out with this particular unit as well. But we also have the option of combining this with Thingsaver Dragon, because keep in mind, this doesn't say specifically Blaster Blade, it just says Blaster, so it can work with things for Blaster Blade Seeker, or Seeker Blaster Blade, whatever the name exactly is, but that allows you to potentially get another layer on that multi-tech engine on Thingsaver Dragon, which is a nice addition. And this could also play in premium to some extent, because with Thingsave, for example, Blaster Blade Seeker removes itself from the field, thus opening up the spot for this particular call, thus not sacrificing the initial attacks you're generating. But in premium, this could also apply, because in premium we have a lot of multi-tech options, and probably a lot more cards that put themselves away, or maybe put them in the soul or back to deck or whatever, with any things that can apply with the premium landscape. And this then can benefit from that. So an interesting tool option that can work for a lot of variety of playstyles. But it also has a secondary effect which helps it to be a bit more consistent, as it has the skill Auto. When this unit is rode upon by a unit with Blaster in its card name, call to the Vanguard circle. So essentially it sets itself up for its first effect, thus making it more consistent. This is a bit more restrictive, because you need to have a specific Blaster unit to ride up on it to get the effect, but at the same time that then also will sets up for its first effect. So overall, a very nice tool for Royal Paladin in general. Now moving on to the second promo, we've got a bit more specific one, which isn't very generic for the clan, but it's oh so good for its respective deck, as we've got this grade 3 for Narukami, Dragonic Kaiser Crimson. And Crimson is the ideal support card for the Blood, because Crimson's ability is Auto from Drop Zone. When your Vanguard with Kaiser in its card name attacks or is attacked by a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, cost Counterblast 1, and you may either call this card to an open Rigor Circle, or have all of your Vanguards get power plus 10k until the end of the battle. So this can be used in two different ways. It can be used as an offensive tool to achieve multi-attacks, or maybe you want to give your Vanguard an additional 10k power, but that's probably not very likely. But it can also be used defensively, as you can give your Vanguard an additional 10k power during your opponent's attack when they attack with their Vanguard. And 10k power is somewhat equivalent to 1 card, so counterblasting 1 to get 10k power during your opponent's turn is honestly not that terrible. And at the same time, it also circumvents the guard restrict as well, so it's a pretty versatile skill. But this card becomes even better once we take a look at its second effect, and then we can see what this whole card is trying to do. Because the second effect of Kaiser Crimson is Auto Trigger Circle. When a card is put into your trigger zone during your end phase, if you have a Vanguard with Kaiser in its card name, cost Soul Blast 1, retire this unit, put the card into your trigger zone, into your drop zone. So essentially what this does, it's a damage negate of the Blood's own damage effect that happens at the end of the turn. So this essentially is taking the blame or taking the blast of the self-damaging effect, thus preventing you to either killing yourself or at the very least not putting yourself at a higher damage when you went with the Blood for a very high drive attack pattern, which honestly is perfect for the deck, because not only are you able to use the Blood full power without any of the downsides, but then also you will set up Crimson on its own. Because the crazy thing about Crimson is that it's an entire enclosed loop engine in one card. Because the moment you place down Crimson on the field, you can use this effect to retire itself to negate 1 damage, but then it also sets it up during your opponent's turn to potentially get plus 10k power on the defensive attack. But then also next turn when you start attacking, you can recall to the field, thus setting it up for your end phase to immediately retire it once again to save 1 damage. And this loops can go on and on and on and on and on as long as you have the resources to pay for this. Which honestly is insane for the Vermilion deck, because this card is what the deck needed to at least make the engine feel a bit more smoother and to give it at least some staying power. Now, will the deck become meta? Probably not, but it's a nice addition nonetheless. Now, moving up to Standard, we got a couple of interesting cards that can help to support some sub-archetypes, as we have a new card for Greedon, which is this Grade 1 Desire Devil Hiko. And Hiko has his effect, Auto from Soul. When you're great for your Greater Vanguard with Greedon in its card name attacks, cost bind 1 other Desire Devil Hiko from your soul as face up, and call this card to your back row Rearguard Circle. So this is another card that allows you to reflood the board again and again to potentially do the reset of Greedon multiple times during a single turn. Now, I'm not too well versed with the Greedon build, so I don't know how easy it's to acquire this particular skill, but at the very least, it's a card that allows you to flood the board without costing you counterblast, which most of these Desire Devil do. So this is a nice extra addition to potentially lower the strain on your counterblast resource. So this could be a nice addition for the Greedon deck, but we have to wait and see how much impact this will actually have on the deck. Now, moving on to a Grade 2, we've got a new Grade 2 for Hexorb Sorceress, which is Witch of 4 Lights. And she has the effect, although from the Rearguard Circle, once a turn, when this unit is chosen by the ability of your Grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Sorceress in its card name, which essentially is Hexorb Sorceress, costs Soul Blast 2 and counter charge 1. If this unit's power increased or decreased by trigger effects during this turn, draw a card. So essentially what this means is that you want to first give it the 10k power of your trigger effect, and then use Hexorb Sorcerer's skill to give it the additional 10k power, and that will then trigger this effect, but then it will means you will get the full effect, because then you also get the part where you draw a card. And in my opinion, that's what you're going to need in order to justify the cost of this skill, because just Soul Blessing 2 to get a counter charge is a bit underwhelming. But if you get the extra draw on top of that, that's when we get into a sweet spot where you actually get quite a big bang for your buck here, as paying 1 soul for a soul charge and 1 soul for a draw is a pretty good bargain. So this is an interesting card that might come up, but at the same time, it's a bit more restrictive, because it means you need to put both the trigger buff as well as the Hexorb Sorcerer's buff on this unit to get the full power. And there are other cards that can benefit maybe a bit more as well, as seen as this also takes up an attacking slot, as seen as a Grade 2. So it's a bit iffy, but it could be a nice addition for Hexorb Sorceress. Now, another Grade 2 we've got is for Stoichea. This is a bit more generic, as we have beautiful Maiden Candelalia, I think that's how you pronounce that. And her effect is on a Rearguard Circle. At the end of your turn, cost retire this unit and call up the 2 plant tokens to the Rearguard Circle. So this is very generic. We've seen this in V Premium a lot of the times with the initial support wave for plant tokens. So it's not crazy powerful, But there are some decks in Stoichia that can maybe benefit from this, with decks that really want to flood the board, like Magnolia, for example, that can maybe use this to some extent. But I think the main deck that's gonna use this is going to be Aurora, as seen as a token engine, and it can abuse tokens in general. This could be an addition for the deck to just flood the board with more tokens, so you can get more benefit from those abilities that work in tandem with tokens. So far, most of these promos are just interesting cards that could come up or not. Maybe Crimson is probably the most instrumental one, because that actually fixes an issue with a particular archetype, so that's probably the most important we've seen so far. But the next couple of promos that we're going to talk about, the next 4, are the main reason why I think things are getting a little bit problematic, because not only are we seeing very powerful promos, to some extent they are making certain decks work, or they just fix an issue that we had with certain archetypes to begin with. So first off, we've got a very interesting card for Dragon Empire that works for 2 builds, but honestly it's mainly support for Bushiroad, because we've got this brand new grade 1, which is Blaze Maiden Shadia. And Shadia has the effect, although when it's placed on the Regal Circle, if you control 2 or more normal units with Blaze Maiden in their card names, very important part is she counts herself, so you only need 1 other Blaze Maidens, and in Bushiroad's case, she herself is a Blaze Maiden, so just calling this in the Bushiroad turn means you fulfill the condition in the first place. Cost: soul this 1, search your deck for up to 1 Trickstar or Trick Moon, discard it, and shuffle your deck. So you can use this for Nirvana to search out Trickstar, or can use this in combination with Bushiroad to search out Trick Moon. Now, in my honest opinion, this probably won't be played for Nirvana, because 1, you need another additional Blaze Maiden to activate the skill. There are a couple of good Blaze Maidens, but it's not your main playstyle, and it means it's sometimes you just brick with this card. But also, you don't really get a lot of value of getting Trickstars into the drop zone, because you're already going to search out a couple of Trickstars, at least 1 with your right line, and the second one you mainly don't need. If you really need to do that, why not just play Trickstar as your starter, which I honestly am more fan of, because that will basically negate the whole idea of this card for the Nirvana engine at least. For Bushiroad, it's a whole different story, because for Bushiroad, putting a Trick Moon in the drop zone is ideal, because at the same turn you use that, you can immediately recall the Trick Moon from your drop zone to the field, and I believe even you will then generate a soul, so then you negate the entire cost of this particular grade 1 while building units on the board. Which essentially means, in Bushiroad's case, this is just extra copies of Trick Moon, which is perfect, which honestly means this could be a nice 1-off, 2-off, maybe 3-off, depending on how many slots you want to dedicate on having additional copies of Trick Moon, which, and I say that word quite a lot now that I think about it, is pretty nice for the deck. So in Bushiroad's case, I think this is a really strong promo that can definitely see play. Nirvana, probably not so much. And this honestly is the weakest among these cards, because we have 3 other cards which are really good. So let's first take a look at the card that essentially is something we've been saying since day 1 that the archetype got released, or at least even revealed, because we've got a brand new set order, grade 1 order, in the likes of From Here On, the future of our experiments. And this research set order is exactly what the deck needed, because for 1, it's a grade 1, so you can immediately start setting up your research cards, but then it also has some additional effects, which is just extra cherry on top here, because it has the effects. You may play this card if you have an Eva Vanguard with glitter, so this makes sense, it's specifically for the Eva build. But then it also has the effect, continues in order zone, your absolute rearguards cannot be retired by your opponent's card abilities. So this is built-in protection for your main attacker, your main gimmick for the Eva build. So that's great, because that means you have more consistent offensive plays here. And it also means you get more consistent value of the intercept and defensive ability of Obscudate. So yeah, this is a nice addition for the engine, but also has another effect, which is act on order zone. If you have 4 more research cards in your order zone, put this card into your soul, countercharge 1, choose an Obscudate from your drop zone and add it to your hand. This is really good, because not only will it generate free resources, because you get a soul and you get a countercharge, you also get another card in your hand. So it's almost every type of resources you get for free. And on top of that, the card that you get is a massive beater that also substitutes as a good defensive unit. Sadly, it doesn't put it directly back to the deck, so if you run out of copies in your deck, you cannot really keep achieving the multi-attack whatever. But honestly, besides that, this is just insane, because keep in mind, once you reach a certain threshold of orders in your order zone, the rest don't really matter at this point. So might as well use them for effects like this, because even if you, let's say for example, you place the order just to get this effect, you don't minus in your hand, because you replace the order for the grade 3 in your hand, which is a beater or a defensive card in the first place, which orders aren't. But on top of that, you get a soul in the counterblast, which is really good. So this order is whatever needed to make the deck actually function. So we need this card ASAP. But beyond that, we see two other orders which follow suit in this line, because we also have a order card for Chaos, as we got a brand new normal order grade 1 in the likes of the one who controls the Chaos. And this order card has the effect: if you have a Vanguard with Chaos in its card name, cost +1 to play this. Look at the top 5 cards from your deck. Choose cards equal to the amount of cards in your soul with Chaos in their different card names, put them into your soul, and shuffle your deck. Then, if you have 8 or more cards in your soul with different card names, choose one card from your soul and call to the rearguard circle. Choose one of your rearguards with Mikani in its card name, and it gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. So this, again, is an insane card for this archetype, because not only will it help you to supercharge your soul with the specific cards you're going to need, on top of that, it allows you to loop your main attacker, because the thing with Mikani is, if I remember correctly, it is a restander, which helps to pressure for a game, but at the same time, it puts itself into the soul, which means at some point you run out of option. With this order, you can keep recalling that same Mikani over and over and over again. So not only is this order a way to supercharge your win con, but it also substitutes as extra copies of your main combo play. So this order is probably a staple for the Chaos build. And yet again, we are going to need this card to make the archetype actually function properly, just like we see with Eva. But there's yet another promo that follows suit, because we have also a grade 3 order, which is the order for Roa, as we have Twin Swords of Determination, which is also a set order, this time for Stoicheia, and I believe this is the very first set order we see for Stoicheia. And this set order has the effect: if you have a Vanguard with Roa in its card name, cost +1, retire one rearguard to play this. Although, when placed in the order zone, search your deck for a Redalina revealed and add it to your hand and shuffle your deck. And then also continue as in order zone. During a turn, if you have a Vanguard with Roa in its card name, all of your tokens in the back row get power plus 5k. So now your plan tokens are going to be 10k boosters, which already is pretty decent. But more importantly, this is the searcher for your main aggression combo play, which is the grade 2 that allows you to create an extra token, which allows to attack from the back row, that then empowers this unit to be even stronger. That grade 2 was essential for Roa to actually have a pressure play. Now, we finally have a searcher for it in the likes of this set order. Sadly, it's a grade 3, which means you cannot do it on turn 2, where you can have like this massive aggro play in the early game. But maybe that was a bit too much right at the gate. On turn 3, I think this is a very valid option, and this is going to be really good, because on top of that, this does also interact with the Momoka token, because the Momoka token is a token, so it gets the additional power of this order, and then that additional power will be transferred to Redalina to be even a stronger attacker after that. And interesting enough, this set order does stack. So if you stay for multiple turns and you have multiples of these set orders, these tokens are going to grow, which is very, very interesting, and I love the prospect of that. So yeah, we need these promos, we need all these promos, and we need them now. So yeah, same thing as always with promos. I am very disappointed that these are promos. I just hope we're gonna get them as soon as possible and not make them very annoying to get. Like, just make them either box toppers or just put them into a set, or like make it very easy to get for them, that they are not like $20 a pop for something, you know. Bushiroad, would be very nice. We've been over this again, like again, video we've done before, wherever that is, and it still applies to this one. So yeah, overall, the card skills and what these cards do, I'm very excited about these. Not so much about the fact that these cards hold the two letters P and R on the left bottom of these cards. I just wish they say like DBTO 6 or 7 or something like that. That will probably be more enjoyable. But sadly, we cannot have them all. But with that said, that's basically everything that I have today. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these cards, as there's a lot to go over today's video, as we got all types of promos for all across the spectrum of Vanguard, from V Pyramid to Standard to even all types of clans and nations. So I'm very curious of what you guys' thoughts on these cards are and which of these promos you're the most excited about by this, just the prospect of the skills. Not necessarily that these are promos, but mainly their skill and you wish to see as soon as possible be integrated in the English format. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over patreon.com/FreakinInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/FreakinInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!